While in the hospital recovering, I had taken my running clothes with me. And I thought, oh, I can get up my usual time and go out for a run before the surgery. So that's what I did. And wouldn't you know, as I was running back from an hour's run, my surgeon is just coming into work. And he says, what in the world are you doing here? And I said, I just had to get one last run in before my surgery. He said, oh my God. So they wheeled me up on the gurney. We're starting the IV. And the surgeon walks in. He said, would you believe this woman was out running this morning?
We have a very special guest, Dr. Ruth Heidrich, who has a remarkable story about, I don't want to say cancer survival, but really cancer conquering. She didn't survive cancer. She kicked cancer's tail. And we want to talk about the process by which she did that. Already a marathoner, eating what she thought was a healthy diet of chicken, fish, and low-fat dairy, Dr. Ruth Heidrich was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at the tender age of 47. With the guidance of Dr. John McDougall, she refused chemotherapy, radiation, hormone blockers, and changed to a vegan diet. The results of the dietary change were so powerful that not only did she beat cancer, she added biking and swimming to her fitness regimen. Exactly 2 years later, after the diagnosis, Dr. Heidrich crossed the finish line of the Kona Ironman triathlon, becoming the first vegan to do the Ironman. Dr. Heidrich went on to do the Ironman 5 more times. She's the winner of more than 900 trophies, 8 gold medals from the U.S. Senior Olympics, and 67 marathons, including Boston, New York, and Moscow. So without further ado, Dr. Heidrich, welcome to the Montgomery Heart and Wellness Optimal Health Journey community. And I think what you have done in your lifetime truly embodies what we try to teach and share here is achieving an optimal life journey. One of the questions I want to do is get into your mindset. We had the diagnosis, but you wanted to go back before you met Dr. McDougall. So why don't you take us back before and just bring us up to that time?
Well, just very briefly, when I was in high school and started becoming body conscious and weight conscious and all that, my aunt took me to see the ice follies. I don't know if they're still around, but I was so impressed with the bodies of these skaters. And I thought, I want to look like that. I want to be like that. And I knew the answer was exercise. So it's a matter of serendipity and curiosity. The serendipity was that my aunt took me to that, and I became very curious about exercise and how important it was. And I thought running, it would be perfect. It's so easy. I could do it any place, anytime. So when I got home the next morning, I dug into my closet, found an old pair of tennis shoes in the back and a pair of cuffed Bermuda shorts and a t-shirt. And early in the morning, really early, I went out for my first run.
What year was this?
1968.
Still in 68. Okay. Wow. After the birth of your first child.
Yep. And I got hooked immediately. And also, I've been interested in nutrition for years and read Adele Davis and Gaylord Howe, all these books about nutrition. And of course, back then, they were promoting liver, eat that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought that I was eating the perfect diet. So had the exercise handled, and I also thought I had the diet handled. Well, one day I was at the beach. The same aunt, by the way, that took me to the ice follies. I was leaning over in my bikini top, and she says, Ruthie, you got a lump in your breast. And I looked down, and it was like it had popped up overnight because I had never noticed that before.
What year was this? You're at the beach now. What year is this?
1982.
1982.
Yeah,
wow.
4th of July weekend. And when I saw that, I called the clinic and I got right in to see a doctor. And they said, why did you wait so long to come in? And I said, I just had a mammogram 6 months ago and it was clear. instead of doing needle biopsies or take a little bit of the tissue, he said, I'm going to go in and take that whole tumor out. And I said, okay, and I want to watch the surgery. He says, oh, no, you don't. I said, yes, I do. There's the curiosity again. I want to see what that thing is in my breast. And I said, just give me a local. Anyway, I talked him into letting me do that. You're sure? I said, I'm absolutely sure. So I'm watching as he's cutting and cutting and cutting. And he finally gets this whole mass out, puts it on the little tray table, and takes a suture knife and cuts it. And there are little grains of sand that spill out. And he says, uh-oh. And I said, what do you mean, uh-oh? And he'd forgotten that I was watching. And there he said, well, that's not a good sign.
Wow.
And there were calcifications. My body was fighting it by calcifying those. They took a frozen section in pathology and got an immediate diagnosis, infiltrating ductal carcinoma, which is one of the most common types of breast cancer, but it does metastasize fairly fast. It's not the most fast metastasizing like the inflammatory, but it's not in situ like some that never. I was on medical leave, had not gone back to work, and I picked up the local newspaper and I saw this little tiny ad. It said, wanted women with breast cancer to participate in diet research study. Call this number 262, which is a Kailua number, and that's close. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's the serendipity. Just so lucky, that timing and everything. And so I called the number and Dr. McDougall answers the phone. He was really just kind of getting started. He'd finished his residency. He'd been on the Big Island as a plantation doctor and had just moved back to Honolulu. And so I told him I had just been diagnosed. And he said, get your medical records. I want to talk to you. And so I was in there the next day practically, and he goes through everything, the blood work and the diagnosis, and he says, with this cholesterol, 236, you are at as great a risk of dying of a heart attack as you are the breast cancer. And I said, what? He said, we'll talk about what to do next. And he started explaining why chemotherapy, radiation don't get to the root cause. They don't reverse cancer. They try to kill it. It's not a cure by any means. At this point, I was working on my PhD. And so, I had research classes, statistics, and enough background that he started to show me the science. There were animal studies that showed how animal protein causes cancer to grow. And he showed me the epidemiological studies where the countries that eat the way we do have high rates of breast cancer, and the ones that don't, like Asia and Africa, have almost non-existent rates of breast cancer. And he showed me all the data, how to cook, how to eat a starch-based diet. I already loved brown rice, courtesy of Adele Davis, and baked potatoes. And so I just don't put butter on them. And so I got home and I told my husband what I had found out. He said, what? Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. You've fallen into the hands of a quack. I said, oh, no. He showed me the research. If I change my diet and no animal products, no dairy, it's going to stop the cancer growth and even reverse it. He hopes. That's what he wants to prove is with his research. And I said, I think this diet would help you too. And he said, oh, that's ridiculous. I said, Dr. McDougall says it lowers blood pressure. So he went to his doctor and asked, guess what his doctor says? Diet has nothing to do with that. So he says how can the breast cancer diet be good for these other problems? And I didn't know enough at that point to understand that it was the basis of all these degenerative diseases, which later, I never did convince him. He is unfortunately deceased. Anyway, my racing continued. And after I had a mastectomy, bilateral, the doctor scared me, saying, you're at such high risk of cancer in the other breast. We'll do a modified radical on the right and a simple on the left. And then we can have reconstructive surgery. Wow. Anyway, I got back to racing and then heard about the Ironman triathlon. This was brand new at the time. In 82, I thought, I'm going to add swimming. Having been raised in Hawaii, I knew how to swim. And I had an old rusty bike in the garage. So I started training and I finished in 14 hours. It was an achievement. I was really thrilled that it went so well. I talked to people about my diet, how important it was, how it helped my training, my recovery.
So you felt like you were a better racer after you changed your diet?
Oh, yeah, by far. But nobody really listened or paid much attention to it. After I got some publicity for it, grandmother trains after cancer for triathlon. I was on the cover of a local newspaper, and Continental Airlines contacted me and said, there's an Ironman going on in New Zealand. We'd like to sponsor you. And
wow.
Yeah. The common knowledge then was that it took a full year to recover from this grueling Ironman triathlon. Well, I knew better because of this diet. It just made all the difference in the world. And so I just keep right on training and did the Ironman. Came back with the front page of the New Zealand Herald. There's one newspaper in New Zealand. Front page, a picture this big of me, 2-inch headline, Ruth, a woman of iron. Oh, wow.
Wow.
So on the plane, Continental flew me back, first class. The flight attendant stood up and said, we have a celebrity on board. And, I thought, wow. So when I got back to Honolulu, I went to the Continental office, walked into Dennis's office and threw one of the newspapers on his desk. He looks down at it. He looks up at me. Don't they have an Ironman in Japan coming up in August? And I said, yes. He said, why don't we send you there to do that? Same thing. I got another first place.
What was your mindset? Was there a fight as you go through the story and I hear you, it just seems like you were determined to just get to the next step and be fit.
And that's where the exercise, the running really helped dealing with all the anxiety. I mean, I'm talking strenuous exercise, running, biking, swimming every day, and started lifting weights. And so I even slept well.
Dr. Heidrich, this has been a wonderful show. I really want to thank you for sharing your words of wisdom and insight. I've learned a lot. I took a lot of notes here. And I want to thank you for the brave work you've done. A lot of wisdom you've contributed to the body of knowledge and evidence in the plant-based community. I really commend you in all the work that you're doing, especially with the Vegan Society, and continue to inspire all of us. Your optimal health journey has been an inspiration to us all and continues to be so. Hats off to you, and thank you very much for enlightening us tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity to help spread some really good information that people need.